Now we're going to start graphing some lines based on the equation. So the first thing we're going to do is, you saw in the last video that ordered pairs come from equations and they make up lines. So I'm starting with equations, so in order to graph it I have to find some ordered pairs. So you can pick any values of x that you want, because remember there's infinite points on a line. I always like to pick 0, so 0 is definitely one ordered pair, or one x coordinate that I'm going to choose. It's easy to work with. So if I plug 0 into my equation and solve for y, so if I take this equation and say y equals 2/3 times 0, then that means y also equals 0. Now, because we're dealing with a fraction, and I know I'm going to have to multiply, yeah, 0 is easy, but you want to think of numbers that you can plug in that work nicely with a third in a denominator, or can be divisible by 3. So the obvious choice would be 3. So if I plug in 3, y equals 2/3 times 3, I'm going to go ahead and write it as 3 over 1. My 3's cancel, and y equals 2. So when I plug in 3, I get 2. And let's go ahead and pick one more ordered pair. Let's do, how about -6? And again, I'm picking things that are divisible by 3 because of my denominator. If I do 2/3 times -6, I'm going to get 3 goes into 3 once, and it goes into 6 twice. 2 times -2 is -4. So now I'm going to plot my 3 points that I found. They're 0, 0, 3, 2, and -6, -4. As you can see, they all fall in a line. So we draw our line through the points. Remember, that line is a guideline. You don't just connect your points, you go through the points, because every point on the line is a solution. We just found 3 of those points to help us graph our line. So again, we just picked any x coordinate that we wanted, plugged it in to find the y that went with it, graphed it, and then drew our line. Okay, let's graph another one. Again, I like to pick the number 0. It's always an easy one to plug in. So if I plug in 0 for x, I'm going to get y equals -3/2 times 0 plus 2. Y is going to be, since it's 0, that's 0 plus 2. So y equals 2. Again, I'm dealing with a fraction of multiplication, and since my denominator is 2, I want to pick x values that are divisible by 2. So let's just pick +2. So now y equals -3/2 times 2, and then we still have that plus 2 on the end. So I'm going to multiply. That's going to leave me with -3 plus 2. So y is going to be -1. So when I plug in 2, I get -1. And let's go ahead and pick a third point. How about, let's pick a negative. Let's do -2. So we have -3/2 times -2 plus 2. So my 2's cancel. Negative times negative is a positive, so y equals 3 plus 2, which is 5. So now let's plot our points. 0, 2. Oops. 2, -1. And -2, 5. And now I'm going to draw my line. That's pretty close. And put my arrows on the end. And there's my line. And every ordered pair on that line represents a solution to our original equation. Let's do another one. Now, what's different about this one is it's not, the equation is set up a little bit differently, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and pick some numbers. It's a little bit more difficult for me to pick numbers when it's not already y equals, because I'm not sure if there's going to be a fraction or not. So we may have to deal with that in a minute. But I'm going to pick 0. So that's going to give me 0 plus 4y equals 4. That's going to give me 4y equals 4. I have to divide by 4, which is a clue for us for the next number, because it looks like I'm going to be dividing by 4. And that's going to give me y equals 1. So when I plug in 0, I get 1. So now let's pick another number. How about if we know that we're going to be dividing by 4, we can kind of think backwards a little bit. So I'm going to need that 4 on the right side, not the one that I'm dividing by, but the one in the original problem, the equals 4. I'm going to need that number, whatever it ends up being, to be divisible by 4. So it's either going to have to be 4 or negative 4. So let's go ahead, let's pick negative 4. It's a little bit harder to do, to kind of forecast what our response is going to be. But let's see if this one will work. So if I plug in negative 4 plus 4y, let's see here, I'd have to add 4 to both sides. Yeah, this will work. So I have 4y equals 8, and that is definitely divisible by 4. So y equals 2. So that gave me 2 ordered pairs. Now, the other thing that I could have done, instead of dealing with it in this form and trying to forecast what I might get, is you could take your original equation and solve for y. So the x plus 4y equals 4. If you treat it like a formula and get y by itself, so you would move your x term, and you're going to get 4 minus x, and then you have to divide everything by 4. So you would get y equals 4 minus x over 4. If you do that, that kind of helps you with the forecasting of what types of numbers are going to work. You can also actually divide that 4 into the numerator, or into both parts of your numerator. So it would be y equals 4 divided by 4, which is 1, minus x over 4, or 1/4. And I'm running out of room. Let me back up a little bit. Create some more space for myself. Y equals 4 over 4, which is 1, minus x over 4, which would be 1/4 x. And so now you can see that you've got a 1/4, and you need to pick numbers that are divisible by 4. So that's another way to do it. I also like to solve for y, just because then I can use my graphing calculator to check my work, and it only takes equations that are in y equals. So that's another reason why I prefer to solve for y. But now you can see if we pick 0, just like we did before, and I plugged it in, I would still get 1. If I plugged in negative 4, I'm still going to get the same thing that I got there with 2. So 0, 1, let's go ahead and graph that. And negative 4, 2. And then I'm going to graph my line. It's kind of a flat-looking line. Close, not the greatest. Put your arrows on the end, and there's your line.